last day of enrollment. It's a big deal. Don't forget.
Well, I mean, kind of.
It is a big deal.
Yeah, those guys, their workouts are off to a really good start too. It's interesting how they've done the groups and stuff, like the pairings, and to have guys not like read into that, right? Just do your thing. It's based on schedules. Like we're gonna need a couple. I need a couple of these guys that are not fringy but very capable. That feel like
to step up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a couple of those guys I would really appreciate next leveling, because what they're going to figure out is with a 105-man roster, you have to practice a little bit different. So you need to prepare now. Put money in the bank now so you can spend it later.
How so? How do you need to practice
But
different?
because you don't, like for instance.
You mean the players need to practice different, or the coaches need to structure practice differently?
They're going to have to structure practice differently. And as a player, like you're going to have to manage.
You got to perform
your workload.
Okay.
Right. Let's say, like, we don't agree on running backs, right? Some people think 6 is a lot or 7 is a lot. I'm just going to take running backs for instance.
Okay.
I'll tell you how the math works.
Mm-hmm.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's say you only carry 7 running backs.
Okay.
7 out of 105 is a fairly decent percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Some will put you in the 5-6 range.
Mm-hmm.
How would you structure practice to not only get your guys ready to play, but practice in such a way where you can get your other unit ready too?
Okay.
So it's not just getting your offensive guys ready. It's you need to have guys that can get your defense ready and not have it be at the workload's expense, but you can't cheat the system either. So you need a certain amount of numbers to function efficiently. Or you have to get creative with what your practice format looks like.
So
let's say
what does that look like?
Well, that's up to them. It may have to be a little bit more NFL-ish.
Okay.
Right? Where you don't have the volume of numbers, so you situationally prepare. Because you can't go like 4 or 5 groups.
Right. You
just don't have
the bodies for it.
But the trade-off is your bottom is inherently going to be significantly closer to the top because you don't have the variance.
The breadth of roster.
Right. So we in our heads we're like, oh, get down to this number. This group should have this number. You still have to be able to function at practice.
Right.
And it's going to be brand new.
Which that's fair because I think most of the time, at least when
you think about it like that?
No, so the way I was thinking about it, just full disclosure, was I was thinking about it from games, from a game standpoint, right? Okay, if I need this number of guys in a game, and I feel like that number for running backs is probably 3, maybe 4 at the most, and then I've got a couple in terms of leeway in case a guy gets hurt, right? I'm looking at it from a offensive line standpoint, right? We talked a lot about offensive line. I would love it, and you said this was a little pie in the sky, and you might be right.
I don't even use that term.
It was the sentiment.
That sounds like something you would say.
It's pie. It's in the sky.
By the way.
What's up?
Never mind. I don't want to get you distracted. I would not use pie.
That's just the term. That's just the phrase.
No, I understand. But why pie? Is pie immaculate and I didn't know?
No, because it rhymes. Pie in the sky. Just because it flows.
It's definitely.
I mean, what do you want? You want like cobbler in the sky? What do you want? You want.
Now, the funny thing about that,
creme brulee in the sky. Like what are you doing?
I was gonna say culturally, I would be much closer to a cobbler.
I wasn't even doing that. I really wasn't.
In the cumulus kind of thing than I would be pie in the sky.
Not gonna say the other thing I was thinking.
Of course you weren't. You say things like hunky dory.
No, I'm just saying it's the phrase. I don't care what you want. Cake in the sky. I don't care. Whatever you want it to be. Now, if you have your ideal situation, I would love it if you could go 2 deep on the offensive line, which you said is probably a little idealistic. That's fine. But I'm
not saying it is.
It's just harder to do. It's hard.
Just ask yourself, when's the last time Nebraska could play 10 offensive linemen and you felt good?
Fair.
We freaked out over 3 new starters last year and they didn't skip a beat.
That's totally fair. But so let's say you've got a 2 deep on offensive line, then you probably would love it if you've got kind of 5 guys that are young and developmental and 5 guys that are about a year away, because it's probably about a 3-year process ideally on offensive line.
Yeah.
So
2.5 right now. I think we're probably averaging.
Yeah.
With
So
Coach Riola.
You've got your 10 guys that can play, 5 guys that are a year to a half a year away, and 5 guys that are young. So that's how I was thinking about it, is in the terms of long-term development and in-game. I wasn't thinking about it on day in, day out practice, which is a mistake on my part.
Yeah, because you have to think about it like that. Because if you're developing, like, guys have to get better every day. And how are you doing it? Like, it was woefully low. Remember when Coach Frost got here, and there were these stretches where you'd have like 14 or 15 defensive backs, and we thought 12 receivers was low, and how you had to manage the workload for wide receivers getting reps because 12 was tough with the rigor.
So can I go back and get the receivers thing for a minute?
Go back and get it from when, and then
from when we thought 12 was low, back in the Frost era.
Okay, that's fine.
I think
yes, you can go back and get it. I grant you permission.
Gracias.
De nada.
I think part of that was the construction of the 12, which I think is going to be a key difference with the 105, right?
Do tell.
So part of the reason we get uncomfortable with the 12, which is still probably low. It's low. But part of the reason we were more uncomfortable with that 12 versus we would be with, say, 14 or 15 now, is because I think we're assuming 1 through 14 or 15 are scholarship guys now. Part of the problem when we were looking at 12 before is we're seeing 9 scholarship guy and 3 walk-ons. It's like, okay, we really only have 9.
I will entertain that.
You know what I mean?
I thought that is
so it's like you feel like you've got 9 even though the number's 12.
Valid.
And now it's like, okay, all 14 are going to be scholar. Like there's not, like, walk-ons are gone basically.
See, I don't know.
I mean, in the sense that we had them before, it's gone.
Okay.
You may have some guys that would have been walk-ons.
I feel like I'm being a little more diplomatic than I normally would be with you, but I can appreciate the way that you're in the court of law phrasing the question, because it forces me to acquiesce.
Look at you. That's an SAT word. I appreciate that. What?
I'm going to punch you right in your soup coolers. God. This whole morning has been a struggle.
What else? Just giving you your props. That's a good word. Good word choice.
You know the whole backhanded compliment thing?
No.
Like, are you going to punch me in the face?
It's just my tone.
B-Mac, I need you, man. I'd like to tag out.
Benny or Bernie?
Well, you're not going to let that coat thing go, huh?
It was pretty funny.
Coatney? Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's hilarious.
It was pretty funny. Comparing Benny Mac to Bernie Mac might be like the biggest deventure of people I've ever seen in my.
Both funny guys.
Exactly. Both hilarious.
One is still with us.
Similar initials.
Yes.
I think so. Yeah.
I think so too, Benny Mac. But no, we're going to look at these numbers differently, because before, when you looked at a number, you had to bake in guys that you never felt like were probably going to play.
Right.
Right. So if you're looking at a wide receiver room with 12 guys, you're like, okay, 3 of those guys probably should never play theoretically. And then you go, okay, so I really need like 16. Now you can say I need 15.
Yeah, we were hand wringing like
what happens when
Brody Belt and Tyhan, even though I was a huge Brody
Belt
but
guy. Most people were like, I don't want that guy on the field.
Right.
Most just common fans are like, I'd prefer we had better options, right? And so you're kind of doing some hand wringing. Some people were even like that with Bullock, and it's like, okay, he's been pretty good. But, there's a lot of hand wringing when you get to a point where you feel like you have to play walk-ons, which is it's sort of ironic here because
you're going to have to kind of get that sentiment out of your head, though, because the 105 going forward is just the 105.
Right. That's what I mean.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're going to graduate from the term. Because we're going to have to get it in our head. We don't care how they got there. They're there.
Yes.
So you have to use
that's
everyone.
And that's what I mean. Like when you're at the 105, you feel like everybody's there for a reason, right? Whereas before, and it maybe wasn't fair to the coaching staff, but you'd be like, sometimes they kind of just will put a guy here or whatever, or bring a guy in for bodies or whatever the case is. When you're running with 140, 150, you have to figure 30 of those guys should never play, minimum. Right. And so we have to look at it differently now. Everybody on the 105 at some point should be able to play. Right. Like,
yeah. What ideally,
like that's
how you have to.
Like if you're on the 105, you better be there for.
You got to contribute. Yep.
Whereas you could be part of the 150 and just be there for some cool gear.
Yeah.
Like, really.
I'll be curious to see what happens with the evolution of practice format.